Happy Monday, boys and girls. It's Miss Mangoni. And I bet you're probably wondering why you can't see my face and all you see is this big old globe that I have here. How about I tell you why? This week, I am back with you for ELA, and we are going to be visiting some pretty cool places this week in our readings. And the reason I have this globe is because what we're going to take a look at is all over the world. There are things that we can find all over. We are actually going to start here in the United States of America. We're going to come down and take a look at some things in Mexico. We're gonna go, let's see, we'll go this way, all the way around to Africa. We'll pop into Asia for a little bit. And well, there's a couple of other places that we're going to go to. But I think what's important for us to think about this week is we're going to be looking at some nonfiction text, but the things that we're going to be learning about are definitely something for our eyes. We're going to be looking at some amazing places I think are going to astound us with their natural beauty, with their power, with their size, with some very interesting ways in which they were created. Can you guys guess what it is we're going to be studying this week? Okay, I can't hear you, so I have no idea what you said, but I bet some of you had some pretty cool guesses. How about I just show you? Let's start with the video. I think that's going to help. Can you see it? That's right, we're going to be looking at the 7 natural wonders of the world. Now don't worry about trying to read what's on the bottom because we'll talk about some of those in our reading. All right. So that is what we are going to be looking at. How many of you have been to any of those places before? So that is what we are going to be looking at. How many of you have been to any of those places before? I have. I have to confess, I've only been to the Grand Canyon so far, but I would love to go some other places someday. How about you guys? I bet that you would. So, what we're going to do this week, like I said, is a little bit different because we are actually going to pop out of our benchmark book this week. But we're still going to be looking at Earth's processes like we started last week with Mrs. Glenn. You guys started looking at earthquakes last week. And so we're still going to continue with things that happen on Earth, the processes that happen on Earth, except we're going to be taking a look more at the landforms that come about because of nature. And so that's why we're going to be looking at the seven natural wonders of the world. I know you guys see on the screen there, we're a little bit of cause and effect here because I like to kind of give you an idea of what it is we're going to be talking about today and focusing on a little bit for just today and also a little bit for the week. And so, with that, I just want to let you know what it is you're reading for today. Because a lot of times when teachers ask you to read, we have you read for a purpose, right? Sometimes you have some fun reading that you do, but other times it's a purpose and there's something that we want you to be paying attention to. And so, today, when I read, the text, when I get into that, I want you guys to be thinking about cause and effect. I know cause and effect is something that we've all talked about before, not just this year. I know that that's something that you also did in third grade. So I'm pretty sure most of you have a good grasp on cause and effect and what that looks like. But I just want to briefly go over that with you again because part of your assignment today will have some cause and effect in it. Another thing that I'm going to do today is when I preview the text, which I like to do, before we read the whole thing, just kind of flip through, and I know most of your teachers do that too. We're just going to look at some nonfiction text features. And again, I know last week you did some with Mrs. Glenn. We looked at pictures, you looked at captions. All of those things are part of a nonfiction text, and their purpose is to show you something, to point out something, to give you a little more information, make that nonfiction text clear, because sometimes nonfiction texts can have a lot of information in them, right? We think of them as informational. So before we get into the text, let's just look at this cause and effect chart. I'm going to make it bigger so that we can see it. So when we talk about cause and effect, basically the cause is the reason of why something happens, and the effect is what happened afterwards. So if we look here, we have this little cloud and there's rain coming down. And so this is what's happening, right? But then if we look over here, we see after the rain, sometimes we have a rainbow and sometimes we have mud, right? And sometimes we can have both. And when you're looking at a nonfiction text or any text for that matter, and you're looking at cause and effect, what you want to pay attention to are some keywords that might clue you into the fact that the author is using cause and effect to present this information to you. Sometimes you'll see the word why, you'll see so, you'll see actually the word cause, you'll see because, you may even see effect, sometimes together with cause. And those are the kinds of things that you'll want to look for. Another one that's not on here is we might see then, right? So it rained and then there was a rainbow, even though that says so, right? We can say then there was a rainbow, right? So those are just some of the things I want you to be looking out for as I'm reading today. Okay? Sound good. So like I said, we are not going to be in our benchmark text this week. So let's take a look at what it is we are reading from and just kind of get an idea of what some of those nonfiction text features are that we have that will be helping us out. Okay. So the very first place that we check, boys and girls, is the title. The title always lets you know what it is you're going to learn about, right? We've already talked about it, but the title of this little booklet is Natural Wonders of the World. This is written by Jane Selman. So here we have the title, we have the author, we have where it came from, and this is the focus question that we're going to be looking at over the course of the week. We're looking at what are some characteristics of famous natural wonders, right? And so you can expect from that we're going to be looking at different natural wonders, right? And we're going to be looking at the characteristics. What makes them up? How did they get here? Right? So, another thing that might be important to take a look at is this words to know box. And I'm looking here, and I bet quite a few of these words landforms, but plateau, terrain, species. We've done some of that before, so you guys know that, but there are probably a few on here that you don't know and you haven't heard of before. So it's a good idea to have it in your mind, that these are words that we're going to find in the text. They're going to be important. We're going to need to know them, right? So keep that in mind. So when we're looking at this first page here, which is really a combination of a couple of pages, I see several things that pop out at me. I see a map, right? That shows some of the points that I showed you guys earlier. There's the United States, there's Mexico, there's Africa, there's Asia, Australia, some of those places, right? So obviously when you see a map, right, this is going to show you where in the world the things that you're reading about are taking place, right? And if you notice, there's dark green, right? So that shows you that these natural wonders that we're looking at, they're not everywhere. They can be found in these places. And then we have the names of what they are, right? That makes sense. Then I look over here on this side, and there is a picture with a caption. And I think what's also important to know is a table of contents. You guys know this. Sometimes your teacher will say, okay, let's turn to the Great Barrier Reef. You know right away that's on page 19. So the table of contents is going to point you to all the information, where you need to go. If there's chapters, if there's sections, all those that are going to be important, right? Here's something that we don't talk about often, bullet points. Why do we have bullet points? Well, basically, that's to draw your attention to something and to focus you in, right? So if you're looking at this page, those bullet points are going to clue you in right away. Pay attention to what it says here, right? So let's look at a couple of others. Oh, before we scoot ahead, so you'll notice here that we're going to have an introduction. There's something on the Grand Canyon, Paracatin, which is in Mexico, Victoria Falls. There's a section on Mount Everest, the Great Barrier Reef, and then there's wonders everywhere. We may not get to all of that this week, just because we have quite a few things that we need to do. We probably will get to these wonders. And if you notice, there are only 5 of them there, so there are 2 out there that we'll talk about a little bit later in a different way as the week progresses. But I just wanted you to be aware of what was in this book and what we were going to be looking at this week. So here I see more pictures and captions, which are going to be important. There's one thing I really want to show you. We show it, but we don't talk about it often, but it's important here. There it is. Right here at the bottom of page 11, we have something called a cross section. So when you have a cross section, it allows you to see inside of whatever the object is that it's showing you, right? So it's like someone just took a knife and sliced it down the middle and then pulled it apart so you could take a look inside. So that's going to be real important when we get there. I hope that is a good enough review for you guys, because I want to go ahead and start reading so that you are prepared to finish your lesson today. I'm just going to read today the first couple of sections. And then later on, I will have you read a section on your own. Remember, nonfiction or informational texts do just that. They give us a lot of information. So I just want you to listen, see if you hear something that, gosh, maybe you've never heard before. A lot of us have heard about the Grand Canyon and read about it and even seen it, but listen to see if something pops out at you that you haven't heard before. So I'm just going to read the Grand Canyon and Paracatin today. And remember, our purpose for reading today is cause and effect, right? So be listening for the cause of something and what the effect is. And we're looking at how these natural wonders are formed. So keep that in the back of your mind, okay? All right, so let's start with the introduction. What makes something a natural wonder? A wonder is a natural structure so amazing and beautiful that it makes you ponder how it was formed. Natural wonders are landforms that have been created by nature, not by humans. Some of these wonders are created in a few years, while others take millions of years to form. Our planet is home to many natural wonders. In this book, we will learn about 5 of them: a layered canyon carved by a river, a young volcano that took over a village, a breathtaking waterfall, an immense coral reef, a towering mountain. Grand Canyon. Between 5 and 6 million years ago, the Colorado River, wound through a large plateau or an area of raised ground. Over time, the river picked up small pieces of the plateau and carried them as it flowed into the sea. This process is called water erosion. The speed and volume of the water are 2 factors that determine how much soil and rock is carried away. Different kinds of rocks also factor into water erosion. Some rocks, such as limestone and shale, are soft and break easily, while other rocks, such as granite and slate, are hard and resist breakage. In the Grand Canyon, the Colorado River carried pieces of softer rock downstream, leaving behind the harder rocks. Over millions of years, this process carved deep canyons in the rocks. And here we have a little map, and then it shows a picture here where the Colorado River has carved the rock of the Grand Canyon into the wondrous structure that we see today. Okay, these rocks make up the layers in the canyon walls. The top of the canyon, where most visitors enjoy their view, is the youngest layer of the canyon. It is called the Kaibab Formation. The bottom layer near the river is the oldest. Scattered rocks located at the bottom of the canyon date back as long ago as 2 billion years. The Grand Canyon is a great place to study rocks and the Earth's history because the rock layers are so easy to see and reach. Geologists often visit the site. One of the first geologists to visit was John Newberry, who traveled to the canyon in 1858. Newberry was the first scientist to record the canyon's layers. He identified many of the geologic layers, although he wasn't the first to see them. Now, this little page over here about the rattling reptiles, I'm going to let you guys read that on your own. So I'm going to continue over here on page 8. Native Americans lived in and around the Grand Canyon for more than 4,000 years before European explorers arrived. These early groups of people hunted local animals and gathered edible plants. By 1150, most of the original tribes had moved away. Only the Havasupai people remained. Some of them still live and work in the canyon. Every year, millions of people travel to Grand Canyon National Park to hike, raft, and see this majestic wonder of nature. Let's take a look. Oh, that is a beautiful waterfall. It's Havasu Falls on the Havasupai Reservation. And that's an example of how water continues to carve the Western Grand Canyon. Oh, so beautiful. Okay, second thing I want to read to you guys about, second place I should say, is someplace that I bet you guys haven't even heard of at all. It is Paracutin, and it is a volcano. So let's read about it. Many of nature's creations are millions of years old. They began forming long before humans lived on Earth. Other creations have formed in modern times. The Paracutin volcano in Mexico is one such formation. Paracutin began forming in 1943 in a field, which 1943, okay, it might seem a long time ago to you guys, but it really isn't. It wasn't that long ago. It hasn't even been, 100 years yet? So that's a fairly new wonder that's happened. So a farmer named Dionisio Polito discovered a fissure or an opening in the ground in his cornfield. The crack was about 1.8 meters, so 6 feet long. Soon more fissures appeared. Black smoke came from the holes and ash piled up on the ground, forming a cone. So in about 12 hours, the cone had grown to 10 meters or 33 feet high. Can you imagine? Half of a day, it grew 33 feet high. And after a day, it had grown to 50 meters or 164 feet. The volcano continued to grow, reaching a height of 100 meters or 328 feet, in just a week. The brand new volcano grabbed the attention of news organizations all over the world. Look, This picture right here, you can see it erupting and people standing and watching. I can't even imagine what that would be like to see that happening, like in your own cornfield. Let's see. The people of Paracatine hoped that their village would be safe. But after a few months, the cone had grown so large that the slow moving lava started to reach their town. The villagers had to evacuate, leaving behind their homes and farms. Over a 9-year period, lava and ash eventually covered the entire village of Paracatine and most of the nearby town of San Juan. Eventually, all that was left of Paracatine was the church steeple rising out of the black rock as a reminder of nature's power. And we can see that here in this picture. This here is the rock of the volcano, and then there's just this church steeple that just somehow managed to stay, right? And this part right here, how the villagers had to evacuate, leaving behind their homes, it reminds me of the account that Mrs. Glenn read to you last week when the earthquake happened and everybody left their homes and their belongings and their values changed and nothing was important to them. Can you imagine what happened here? Their whole town is now gone. So I'm sure they felt a little bit of that as well. All right, let me read this last part and then we will move on and I'll show you what you're going to be doing, okay? Volcanoes such as Paracatine are called cinder cones. They are the simplest type of volcano because they appear suddenly, erupt, and then go dormant for decades or centuries. Cinder cones are formed when lava, which is under pressure inside Earth, shoots out from the central vent in the ground. As the lava explodes into the air, it cools and breaks into small pieces that harden and fall as rocks and ash, or cinders, around the central vent to form a cone, right? So you can see this here. Most cinder cones have a bowl-shaped crater at the top. Because Paracatine volcano is young, scientists have been able to observe its growth since it first appeared. Today, the volcano stands about 424 meters, or 1,391 feet tall, and covers 26 square kilometers, or 10 square miles. Its development has allowed scientists to better understand the powerful forces that shape the Earth. Okay, so I know there was a lot of information there, but since this is all recorded and kept for you, you guys will be able to go back and take a look at it. One thing that I want to look at is kind of your lesson for the day and how what we've read fits into it. So let's pop over here and see what you're going to be doing. So you're going to complete the chart based on the story that we just read, just the first two parts that we read, and one other part that I'm going to have you read. Remember to write the page numbers on which you found your information. Remember, cause is why did it happen, effect is what happened. So I'm going to fill in this first box for us so that you guys have an example and something to follow along with. I was really fascinated by Paracatine because I'd never heard of it until, I don't know, probably a few years ago when I started looking at the natural wonders. And it was just amazing to me that it hadn't happened that long ago and how fast it happened, right? So one thing I'm going to go back and look at is on page 11. So this is where I'm finding my information. I want to look at the cause, right? I want to look at the cause of how did it form? What happened? So when I look here, you know what, I think, let me see if I can highlight here. Okay, so what I learned here is how a cinder cone is formed, right? And that's what it is. That's what that is. It's a cinder cone. So it's formed when lava, which is under pressure inside the earth, shoots out from a central vent in the ground, okay? So the lava explodes into the air and eventually it forms a cone. And that is exactly how this volcano is formed, right? So let's go over here and I want to write about what the cause is, but let's do this so I can type. So what should I put here? I should put what happened to make the volcano come, right? So when I say that, what I'm going to put here is what we highlighted. We saw that lava formed, right? Well, actually, the lava is under pressure in the earth. That should be capitalized. In the earth, okay? So when that happens, the lava, let's scoot that over. Goodness, I cannot type today, children. Okay, lava happens to get really, really hot and it shot out from the ground. That is what happened. That was a cause, and the effect is the creation of the paratutine, gosh, I cannot spell that, cone, cinder cone volcano. That's what happened. So I'm not asking you to put a lot in here. There's just two more boxes. So I want you guys to go back, look at the Grand Canyon and see how that was formed. And then you are going to read ahead on your own Victoria Falls. And I have that for you to read. And then I want you to also tell me how that was formed and then fill in your boxes here. There's one more part of your assignment, but I will let you guys take a look at that on your own and see what the directions are and what you need to do to finish. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. Bye.